Hello, everyone. My name is Tanya Musumhi, and I am a regional manager of IFAC, supporting the Southeast Asia, Central Asia, and Eastern European portfolio. It is my privilege to be here today, and I want to thank the Asian Federation of Accountants and the Lao Chamber of Professional Accountants and Auditors for inviting me to speak today at the CLMV Reporting Conference 2023 and the 136th AFA Council meeting. This is very meaningful for me as a regional manager at IFAC. We have some slides, so hopefully they will work. Okay. You are probably familiar with IFAC, so I will give a quick high-level view of the organization. IFAC was established in 1977 and represents more than 3 million professional accountants through our 180 member organizations across 135 countries. Our mission is to serve the public interest by enhancing the relevance, reputation, and value of the global accountancy profession. IFAC speaks out as the global voice of the profession. It leads and develops a future-ready profession and supports the development and adoption and implementation of high-quality international standards. I would like to acknowledge AFA's importance in the global profession. AFA, through IFAC, AFA can meet, we can meet our objectives only by working closely together with our members and network partners like AFA, who together have the resources and the geographic reach to truly make global transformations. I would also like to acknowledge AFA for all their hard work in today's event. And we're so happy that they've organized this for us today. For my remarks, I will be focusing on IFAC's third strategic objective: supporting adoption and implementation of international standards with an emphasis on financial reporting. We know that adoption and adopting the international accounting standards and the inspection and enforcement mechanisms is hard work. And the process often requires years of advocacy, public education, outreach, and coalition building. In each jurisdiction, there is an ecosystem of stakeholders that need to work together. The same applies at IFAC, and our work in supporting development and adoption of standards. The membership requirements, monitoring and reporting, and implementation supports components of our ecosystem. Aside from those areas, though, through our advisory groups, IFAC often produces and provides input directly to the international standard setting boards, supports post-implementation reviews and surveys, and often engages with the standard setting boards for outreach and speaking engagements. In many jurisdictions worldwide, standards cannot be adopted unless or until they are translated to local languages. Therefore, our intellectual property department plays a significant role in facilitating translation and reproduction requests, ensuring that the IP of the standards remains secure and in the public interest. Only through our coordination and collaboration across all these various areas does IFAC achieve its objective to support adoption and implementation of standards. So since 2016, all IFAC member organizations have a jurisdictional and organizational profile available online via IFAC's Global Impact Map, which details the legal and regulatory environment, the status of adoption and required standards, and the members' role and activities in the adoption and implementation process. These profiles are updated regularly and power IFAC's reporting on the global status of international standards. Since starting our adoption reporting, we've been able to identify some global trends for consideration amongst our member jurisdictions and their standard setting process. There continues to be overall uptake of the standards. First and foremost, though, as I mentioned, IFAC member organizations continue to advance in the adoption of international standards, which ultimately supports greater economic growth and financial market stability. This is especially noteworthy given that the last few years were exceptionally difficult as the world responded to the global economic, health, and humanitarian crises. Through our data, we have found that quite often, IFAC members share authority for adoption of standards and must undertake significant coordination, advocacy, and technical outreach with regulators at national and regional levels to achieve adoption of standards. When new standards or revisions are issued, often they must be reviewed and compared for applicability by the local standard setters, translated and/or passed into local law. This is a convergence process for adoption that requires time and coordination. When multiple revisions to standards handbooks are issued each year, some standard setters do not have capacity to absorb and adopt all changes with their effective dates. They will assess resources for when there might be a pause in revisions to adopt multiple revisions at once. So it might be worthwhile pausing here and mentioning this. IFAC continues to highlight to the standard setting boards that it is important to be far more sensitive to the volume and the number of changes to the international standards as professional accountancy organizations and practitioners continue to struggle with the pace of change and to support education and training on a timely basis to maintain quality. So I'll give you an example. In the most recent Small and Medium Practices Advisory Group response to the ISSB Strategy and Work Plan 2024 to 2027 consultation, it concluded that once the projects on ongoing concern and fraud had been completed, there needs to be a period of stability where no new or revised auditing standards become effective for a period of time. So on to our methodology. Our methodology for assessing adoption and implementation of international standards has been determined in collaboration with each of the relevant standard setting boards and supported by PAOs and key external stakeholders, such as the IFRS Foundation. We endeavor to be consistent and relevant to each unique area, and also continue to maintain this level of global consistency. This methodology is also available online. So here I have presented how the IFRS adopted, partial adopted, and not adopted categorizations are defined based on information submitted, additional desk research, and other stakeholders' consultation. So IFAC assesses at the jurisdictional level versus at the PAO level, because we ultimately want to drive behavior at the jurisdictional level. So when there is more than one professional accountancy organization in a country, all PAOs need to demonstrate alignment to the latest version of the IFRS standards for the country to be categorized as adopted. So in our assessments, we do explain the nuance behind the categorizations for each IFAC member jurisdiction. And if there are any specific jurisdictions questions, I'd be happy to follow up on these offline. So looking at some of the stats that we have, our most recent statistics show us this. So as of December 2021, 53% of IFAC member jurisdictions have fully adopted and incorporated the requirements outlined in the latest version of the IFRSs. 38% are considered partially adopted, and a very small percent, 7%, of IFAC members' jurisdictions have not adopted the IFRSs. Through the Member Compliance Program, we communicate with the PAOs and other key stakeholders in the jurisdiction to understand why and what can be done to support the adoption of these best practices. There are some common challenges in adoption and implementation of IFRS, and this goes for across the board. I won't address all of them, but I will highlight a few. There can be a time gap between the issuance and translation, socializing and approving at the local level, which can impact adoption and implementation. The regulatory environment is not always conducive to the adoption and implementation of IFRSs. Some regulators may not have the necessary expertise or resources to enforce IFRS standards effectively, which can lead to inconsistencies in reporting. And often there are also resource constraints. So these can include costs, a shortage of skilled professionals, limited financial resources, and inadequate technological infrastructure. So though there are challenges, through the compliance program, we have seen PAOs incorporate several interventions to aid in the adoption of IFRSs. So what have some of these been? Well, these include maintaining relationships and engagement with regulators, leveraging education opportunities by playing an effective role through the development and delivery of the professional accountancy exam, and using this as a vehicle for IFRS implementation among members of the profession. Further, PAOs have worked to ensure that not only new members of the profession, but current members of the profession are aware of the standards and of the need for their application through comprehensive IFRS CPD offerings. And so this can include IFRS for SMEs, and this would be for all members. In certain cases, the establishment of a joint national working group has helped to promote a shared understanding of IFRS and ensure a successful adoption and implementation process. By bringing together key stakeholders, identifying challenges, developing implementation plans, and providing guidance and support, the working group can ensure that the benefits of IFRS are realized. MOUs with tax authorities have also been beneficial in promoting cooperation, consistency, transparency between accounting and tax practices. PAOs have realized that by promoting greater exchange of information, improving transparency, and providing guidance and support, these MOUs can help ensure that organizations are able to realize the benefits of adopting IFRS. So in conclusion, I would like to leave you with a few thoughts. IFAC's 2022 Global Status Update highlights additional success stories from our member organizations on their efforts to advance adoption and implementation of international standards and best practices. Their stories relate how policy recommendations and tools from the compliance program, such as self-assessments, help PAOs to identify and bridge gaps with key stakeholders to advance adoption and implementation. So while the process of adopting and implementing IFRS can seem daunting, there are resources and support available to help PAOs and their members navigate this transition successfully. By working together and leveraging support available, we can ensure an effective adoption of IFRS and build a strong and capable accounting profession. So let us work together to promote the adoption of IFRS and improve financial reporting for the benefit of our organizations, our profession, and the broader economy. Thank you for your attention, and let us continue to work towards building a more transparent, more accountable, and sustainable world. Thank you.